Redemption. It's something that anime may do better than any other medium in entertainment. From war-ravaged princes to middle school bullies, seeing these characters grow and evolve has led to some of the greatest moments in anime. However, there's a character I want to talk about whose redemption brought me to tears, and today I'm going to talk about how it did that, parts of his story you might have missed, and how a bully became one of anime's coolest characters. For the first 47 episodes of Fairy Tail, despite not really being around that much, Laxus isn't just a bully, he's a cunt. So much so that for the next few minutes, I'm going to refer to him as such. He's considered arguably the strongest member of Fairy Tail, and he's the grandson of the Guildmaster Makarov, someone he has had a shaky relationship with ever since Makarov banished his father Ivan from the guild. Some early highlights of his character include seeing him refuse to bring Natsu back from an S-ranked mission on Galuna Island. When Phantom Lord invades, his conditions for helping are that Lucy has to go out with him and Kana has to strip for him. Look, I wouldn't necessarily mind those things either, but it's not really the time, bro, and certainly not something you can demand. Obviously, those requirements are not met, and despite fellow members like Mira begging, he refuses to assist despite the guild being on the verge of extinction. Afterwards, he taunts Team Shadowgear about how they were crucified and says he's going to purge the weakness from Fairy Tail. Because of the incident with Phantom Lord, Fairy Tail was mocked for being pathetic, and this infuriates good old Thundercunt. In his mind, they should be regarded as the strongest guild, and instead, their reputation is faltering. He joins in when Team Shadowgear looks to enact revenge on Gajiel, who he's furious at for the invasion. He takes things a lot farther than they do, and he realizes they don't have the stomach to do what needs to be done. Gramps and the guild have gone soft. He's extremely image conscious about the guild, as he's been connected to it his entire life, and as expected of Thundercunt, he figures the only way to right the ship is by him staging a coup. I wonder if he was blasting Not Like Us on those bad boys. This brings us to the single most important moment for his character, and the one that made me a Fairy Tail fan forever, that being the Battle of Fairy Tail arc. To achieve his coup, he needs his most trusted associates by his side, Reed, Bixlow, and Evergreen, also known as the Thunder Legion. Once they return from their mission, it's go time. I'll give him credit here, his plan is not only smart, but perfectly fitting of his character. First, he has Evergreen turn all the Fairy Tail women to stone, which puts the men on edge. Then he gives them a 3-hour time limit to defeat him and the Thunder Legion before they shatter those stones. With tensions raised even further, they're distracted enough to fall for the traps he set up that pit Fairy Tail members against each other before they can face him. This dwindles their numbers greatly, and it's exactly the way he wants things to be handled. Strongest individuals win. Hell, that's why he teamed with the Thunder Legion. They're strong. As we keep going, we'll see the fatal flaw in that belief. He has Makarov trapped to keep him from intervening, and in typical Thundercunt fashion, he relentlessly mocks the Master to try and goad him into giving up the guild. It's a solid plan, but it failed for 2 reasons. Urza breaking free of the stone spell wasn't something anyone could have predicted, so I don't really blame him for that. She's the one who takes out Evergreen, which releases the girls as hostages, and that changes everything. Despite the setback, he pivoted nicely, activating the Thunder Palace, which is basically a massive thunder bomb set to 9/11 the entire town. However, the reason this part failed is on him, because it directly plays into the flaws of who he is. He doesn't understand the guild and what makes it strong. During the battle, we saw a lot of why he became who he was. He'd never been given credit for his strength because of his lineage. Like Jason Tatum, he doesn't feel appreciated. At the same time, he feels his blood entitles him to have the guild. He was deeply hurt by the fact his father was banished from it too. He strove to make a name for himself based on merit, which shows why he values strength. He was tired of living in the shadow of the Master, and now he wants to make the Master live in his. One by one, Evergreen, Bixlow, and Freed are defeated by members who are fighting for their friends instead of themselves. That's the real strength of the guild, something Thundercunt overlooked, and it's the main reason he ends up losing. He never would have imagined Urza would have faith in Natsu to face him one-on-one while she destroyed the Thunder Palace, because he doesn't have faith in anything but his own strength. He couldn't have fathomed Natsu would work together with Gajiel, a once-hated rival who had done serious harm to the guild. for the greater good. Despite proving he legitimately is on another level from everyone we've seen so far, the man born into the guild is defeated because a guy who's been in the guild for 5 minutes puts Fairy Tail before himself, allowing Natsu to keep fighting. If that's not poetic, I don't know what is. It wasn't a BS loss either, because Laxus had to face Mystigan, which was an awesome fight, Urza, Gajiel, and Natsu before he was defeated. He went through that gauntlet and still almost won. There were signs that there's more to his character during these battles too. The best example being when he uses Fairy Law, the most powerful attack in Fairy Tail, one that eliminates all your enemies within a certain distance of you. He activates it with the intention of wiping out the entire guild, and nothing happens, because deep down, he doesn't consider anyone in Fairy Tail to be his enemy. His defeat is a humbling experience. Hard to claim the guild is weak when you lost to it, especially when you made the rules. Their strength conquered his. He returns to the guild where he's met by an angry Natsu, but for the first time, Laxus is a chill guy. He asks for the whereabouts of the master, but acknowledges Natsu's strength. Upon finding Makarov, he's lectured about everything he's done. He tries explaining that all he wanted was to strengthen the guild, but he went about it wrong, and he sees that now. Regardless, what he's done is unforgivable, and Makarov once again banishes his own flesh and blood from Fairy Tail. Laxus is stunned, but accepts it and says goodbye, for the first time in the series referring to Makarov as Grandpa. Hits you hard, man, but this is only the beginning. Before he leaves, we see Laxus stop by the Fantasia parade where he sees everyone performing. There's a flashback to his first parade where he makes up a hand sign for his grandpa, and when he holds it up, it means, "I'm looking your way." We come back to the present and he's making that gesture and then goes to leave. But he senses something and turns around, only to see the entire Fairy Tail guild holding up the sign. He's overcome by emotion, tears up, and leaves. Despite everything, they still have faith in him. To this day, it's the best moment in the series, something that cemented Fairy Tail as one of my favorite anime, and the scene that I've shed more tears to than anything else in my life. When we talk about stories of redemption, perhaps the most important element to get right is making sure the character is worthy of it, so their actions must have consequences. That's something I love about this arc. Laxus is banished from a guild he was destined to lead and one that he was born into. There's also another consequence here that makes it feel earned. We don't see him again for 70 episodes. I love how they handled this. Yes, we didn't exactly see all of his growth ourselves on screen, but enough time has passed that it still feels earned that when he returns, he's not the same guy he used to be. It's on Tenro Island when the guild is facing Hades that we finally see him again. The initial hype of his return was awesome, but I have to admit that the entirety of the moment felt a little disappointing to me at first. Laxus returns, but he's not the one who defeats Hades. No, he gives his power to Natsu to do it. But then I thought about it, and that couldn't be more fitting. Everything we've seen from Laxus to this point has been self-serving. What better way to show that he's changed than instead of taking the spotlight for himself, he gives away his power for the good of the guild. Relying on others is okay and doesn't make you weak. He places his faith in Natsu to win exactly like Urza did against him. You couldn't write a more fitting way to return. When Acnologia shows up and Makarov tells his children to run so he can sacrifice himself for them, it seems like they will, but of course they don't. Laxus even mentions it after. He was on board with that plan. It was the logical move, but regardless, he stands alongside the guild whatever they choose, even if it's certain death against the Black Dragon. It's a touching moment, and for it, he's rewarded by getting wiped off the face of the planet for 7 years along with everyone else on the island. But hey, at least they did it together. Upon everyone's return, I love how they continue down this path for him and keep expanding on it. Guild Arts reinstates him as a member. Yet, in the Grand Magic Games, he's missing at the beginning, and you're like, oh, come on. He ditched them now of all times? 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Except, not really. He and Makarov had a plan of their own to ensure Fairy Tail could succeed. It works brilliantly, and it's nice to see him and Makarov begin to mend the fences between them. In those Grand Magic Games, we're pitted against someone all too familiar to Laxus. One of the guilds participating is Raventail, a dark guild led by his father. This is the biggest dilemma his character has faced. Blood matters. He said so himself. Will he revert back to his old ways, or is he a changed man? Will he side with his father, or side with the guild that gave him a second chance? Our answer is made clear when there's a matchup in the tournament that pits Laxus against Ivan one-on-one. Or at least it was supposed to be. It's really Laxus versus all of Raventail. After hearing his father's words, Laxus chooses to stand by his family, and by that, I mean Fairy Tail. In that fight, he takes out all of Raventail, which is both a literal and metaphorical message. You know that one had to mean a lot to Makarov. Then he goes on to take down Jura in the final event of the tournament, which showcased his strength for Fairy Tail, and he even quotes Natsu's "I'm all fired up," which again shows how much he's changed. While we've seen a lot of growth to this point, his arc is not completed. In fact, the moment that cements his character has yet to come. The guilt of his earlier betrayal isn't something that has subsided. In Tartaros, we see a lot of self-sacrificing behavior from him, which accomplishes two things. First, it shows how much he values others now. He's capable of putting friends before himself. It also highlights how far he's trying to go to absolve himself of his prior guilt. Remember, he's all about merit. Laxus never asks to be forgiven. He wants to earn it through his actions. When the Thunder Legion are attacked by the demon Tempester of Tartaros, Laxus intervenes on their behalf. On the verge of defeat, Tempester self-destructs and releases Bane particles, which is basically magic cancer. To spare everyone in the vicinity, Laxus inhales as much of it as possible, single-handedly stopping its spread. There was no guarantee he would survive, but he did it anyway. This to me was the culmination of his story. His actions here embodied the true spirit of the Fairy Tail Guild. There's a moment later on in that arc when he's lying in a hospital bed where he calls himself pathetic, and that if he keeps going as is, he won't be able to protect the people he cares about before embracing his friends. It's a clear shift in mindset from his Thundercunt days, shows how far he's come, but also how much guilt he still feels. In my opinion, there wasn't much emphasis placed on his arc in Alvarez, and that was a bit of a missed opportunity to me, but there were two moments I thought were fitting for his story. First, he says the confrontation between them and Zaref's Alvarez Empire was bound to happen, but they can't win on their own. Again, a realization that it's okay to lean on others. This ties into the second moment where, for good measure, we see him give his power to Natsu one last time, this time to defeat Acnologia. If we fast forward a little, one of my favorite character moments in 100 Year Quest shows his continued progression too. Toga had just joined the guild when Jalal started investigating the White Mage. Jalal confronts her in the streets and Laxus intervenes on her behalf. Having met her maybe once, he says she's Fairy Tail, therefore family, and won't let Jalal get to her. He doesn't know a thing about her, but for better or worse, they're guildmates, which means she's worth protecting. It's a small moment, but a powerful one. His story is surprisingly linear, and I think you could have used him a little more later in the series or in 100 Year Quest to make that less so, but that doesn't take away from his immense growth. His arc from selfish man who only valued blood and strength to one who puts others above himself is one of my favorites in anime and very reminiscent of Vegeta's. Like the Saiyan Prince, on the surface, Laxus doesn't change a ton. He's still a brash, confident powerhouse, but his priorities have. And ironically, after everything, the man who craved to be guildmaster for so long only becomes worthy of it when he realized that's not what's important. With that, I'm out.